protect not only the employees, but we want to make sure that the operations of the city are continued. And so with that, those are the two things that we're focusing on within the city of Panama City is protection of the force and maintenance of all of the city services. And so what we wanted to do is protect our employees so that they can be there to meet the needs of our citizens when called upon. So we did close the lobby of the city hall, but all of services of the city continue to be fully available to our citizens. We on our website that gives the direct dial number to each one of our departments. It also gives the direct email to each one of those departments, and I can assure you my teammates here at the City Hall will be responding to each one of those so that we can make sure we're meeting the needs of our citizens in their greatest time. This thing, and that's important to protect the force, but also to make sure that we're continuing to able to serve our citizens.
Okay, great. You guys, I think you guys you've done something with online payments as well, that there'd been some fees in the past and maybe those are gone now because, again, the lobby's closed, so people can't have, at least you're going to have a little bit more difficult time coming in and paying.
No, that's exactly right, Brady. And that was the second action that the City Commission took on today, and that was to reduce those barriers that to putting payments done online. One of the things that can be perceived as a barrier is the fact that there's a fee that Paymentus charges for the service of credit cards, debit cards, or check payments online. And so we didn't want to have a penalty to our citizens by having that in place. And so the commission made a great decision today to waive those fees so that everybody can make their payments online and not have not be subjected to additional fees. And we're looking to do that suspension of fees for as long as this disaster is in place.
All right. What is the city doing for firefighters and the police officers that work for the city in terms of protective gear? I imagine it's hard to get that gear if you didn't already have it. So what's it look like on your end right now?
So, great question. And, when we look at Panama City and striving to be the premier city in the panhandle of Florida, we have the 4 lines of effort we're focusing on. And of course, one of those is safety and security. And that's safety and security of not only our citizens, but our police and our fire departments. And fortunately, I've got great chiefs. I've got Chief Baird in our fire department and Chief Irvin in our police department that have been doing diligent planning well before this virus emerged. And so they do have some of the protective masks, the N95 masks in stock, and we're using those. Our firefighters, when they deploy, they're using personal protective equipment because they don't know what they're moving into when they're responding to a medical emergency. And we need to make sure that exposure to a patient that may have COVID-19 takes down an entire fire station because of that inadvertent exposure. And so they're using precautionary measures as they go in. They wear their personal protective equipment until they know that the patient or the victim is cleared of COVID-19 virus. Similarly, on the police side, they're also taking actions to make sure as they're dealing with individuals in the community that they're also in a social distancing posture to make sure that they minimize their exposure to any potential virus.
This is still a tourist area. Panama City was sort of striving to bring up tourism after Hurricane Michael and bring some of the folks who were visiting Panama City Beach over to this side of the bridge. Are we looking at maybe? I mean, I know they've closed the beaches, but from your perspective, from the city perspective, what are we doing to sort of either prevent that or protect people, when they're here and gone?
Yeah, great question. And so we're doing this in a couple of different ways. First of all, we're heeding the advice and direction of the governor and the president about social distancing and groups of 10 or more. And so with that, we're teeing off and keying off of the governor's directive about schools. Of course, the governor has closed all schools through the 15th of April. I'm not sure if that'll get extended or not, and that's a decision that he'll make at a future date. But right now, through the 15th of April, what we did is we suspended and canceled all activities that were scheduled in our community centers, recreation centers, and the like across the city. But what we did not close were any of the outdoor facilities. We wanted to keep the boat ramps open, the parks open, all of the areas that are the dog park, for example, are all open. We're encouraging citizens to maintain that social distancing that they're being advised to from a health perspective, but people need an opportunity to get out. We saw a little bit about that this weekend. A lot of people on the water trying to just decompress from the difficulties of being.
Can you? Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought we had an audio issue, but I think we're okay. What kind of, on a financial side, what's the financial hit you think the city's going to take from this and city businesses? I mean, we're just starting to come back, and now we're sort of hit with this.
Yeah, so I'm looking at it in two perspectives. One is the financial cost to the city, and then secondly, the financial cost to the citizens and to businesses. So to the first, to the city, when I look at this, we're very fortunate that we learned a lot of lessons out of Hurricane Michael. And the first thing that the city commission did is declared a state of emergency. And that was for administrative purposes, not because there was anything going on in Panama City or that we had positive cases. But we know now how to navigate the FEMA reimbursement channels. And the first step of that is declaring the emergency. The second step in that is that we're coding all of our purchases that are in regard to emergency protective measures that we're taking to ensure that they all get coded so we can get reimbursed for it. So that's on the city side of the house. Now, when we look at the citizen side of the house, and the businesses, we're trying to partner with both our citizens and our businesses. So for the citizens, as we talked about earlier, we're relieving all of those extra fees that are associated with online payments. We have all of the application processes for anything that anyone needs to do, whether it's a building permit, plan review, housing application, code enforcement work, to include anything with regard to HR activities. We have online interviewing taking place. All of the things of the businesses of the city we're doing online, and we're taking that burden off of the citizens. The second thing that we're looking to do is how to help our businesses that are really struggling, in particular the four categories of businesses that the governor has placed restrictions on. So those would be the bars, the nightclubs, the restaurants, and gymnasiums. And so today the city commission took another great step to help partner with and take some of the burden off of those businesses within those four categories. And specifically, we're reducing the fees for all of their garbage service to zero. And that's even though some of them are partially operating with drive-through services, we still don't want them to have to shoulder 100% of the burden for a dumpster. And so the city is relieving that responsibility of those payments for the period of the declared emergency for those businesses. The bars and the nightclubs, the restaurants for the next 30 days are going to be in a real pinch. And we want to try to do what we can as a city to help lighten that load during this time that they're in restricted operations.
Sure. What other concerns do you have going forward? What's maybe a major concern that you have that we don't talk about a lot? What's going on?
Yeah, I'll tell you, Brady, that the biggest concern I have with regard to our citizens and their well-being, their mental health. I mean, we've gone through a lot of stress with Hurricane Michael, and we saw a lot of PTSD type symptoms that took place in young people in particular. And this is a different type of threat to this community. It's an invisible threat to the community, the invisible enemy, if you will. And when I start looking at our citizens, like we did with Hurricane Michael, we put a lot of resources to the younger side of our population, the school age kids. Right now, my concern is for our senior adults, the most vulnerable. to this COVID-19 virus. And so we've got a lot of senior adults that are hunkered down in their homes. They're living in fear. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's isolation. And we as a community need to reach out and help our senior adults during this time. Let's check on our neighbors. Let's make sure that they've got their groceries and they have everything they need to be able to continue to live in their homes, but not in total isolation. Now, obviously, we need to do that within the guidelines of social distancing because we don't want to inadvertently contaminate them with a virus. But we need to serve them. We need to reach out to them. So I'm hoping that nonprofit organizations, civic-based organizations, faith-based organizations will reach out and help our senior adults in our community.
Is there, I shouldn't say is there, what's the light at the end of the tunnel here? How long do you think this will last? And where do you think we're going?
Well, I think it's anybody's guess as to how long this is going to last. But I think the president mentioned it last night is at what point is the cure causing more harm than the cause? And I think with that, there's this is going to have to turn a corner here in the near future. Whether that's another couple weeks from now, I don't know. But I do know that as we emerge from this, I have the great confidence in our community and our businesses and our citizens that we'll emerge back better and we're going to come back and we'll be stronger. Until then, let's continue to serve each other. Let's help each other out. As we talk about restaurants, today happens to be National Takeout Day. So let's go visit those restaurants. Let's do takeout service at restaurants for breakfast, lunch, and dinners so that we can keep them going. And by the way, I would say let's tip very well when we go and do that service so we can take care of those servers that are there that are on reduced income. A lot of these businesses are now put together on a shoestring. They spent a lot of their reserve capital in the recovery after Hurricane Michael. And the depth of their reserve capital or their borrowing capacity has been hit. And we need to help our restaurateurs and our businesses that have been directly impacted by this COVID-19.
Is COVID-19 and all these social distancing, is that having an impact on the construction work surrounding Hurricane Michael? And I mean, have we just basically ground to a standstill here?
No, and I think that just really hits to the resolve of this community. I have not seen any really significant reduction in construction work. I know at Tyndall they've had to do some new procedures, for example, but it's only prudent procedures. I have not seen any major reduction in any of the businesses going on with regard to construction. Other businesses have been hit. I'm a little concerned about the future of the automobile industry. With what the automobile industry is doing with regard to production lines and converting those production lines to meet the national demand for ventilators and other types of equipment. So I think there's a rippling effect that we haven't yet realized that's down the road. So I think we need to make sure we're supporting our automobile industry owners as well.
All right. Just final thoughts here. What do you want the public to take away from this? What do you want the citizens of Panama City to know as we go forward?
Well, thanks, Brady. And these are all uncertain times and uncharted times for this community and indeed the nation and the world. But the city of Panama City wants to stand firm and stand strong with our citizens and their businesses. To that end, we have established the Panama City Call Center. And if you'll dial 872-3000, that's 872-3000, you'll go through the menu and it's got an option for our call center that can help our citizens to know what's open, what's not open, how we can get their needs accomplished. And we want to be that one-stop shop for all of our citizens here in Panama City. We're so proud of our citizens and what they've endured for the last 18 months. We'll get through the rest of this together, and I absolutely believe that when we get out of this COVID-19 and we're back on our feet again, that we're going to come back bigger, better, and stronger.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. City Manager. Thank you, Mr. McQueen. Really appreciate you taking the time And thank you guys for watching, and we'll see everybody next time.
Hey, Brady, thanks for what you do. Appreciate everything.
Thanks.
And we're clear, guys.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Hey, great.